Hello and welcome to the Bison Basketball Show. I'm your host, Brian Shawn. Finally, after a summer full of workouts and a month of physical practices, it's finally time to play. The North Dakota State men's basketball team, some tough challenges right off the bat, heading to California for a pair of games, the season opener at UC Santa Barbara on Saturday afternoon. The Bison won the only previous meeting between the two schools back in 2010. NDSU off to a good start on the road, Paul Miller crossing over, hitting the reverse lay-in for an early 5-0 lead. Later, Tyson Ward would spot up for three and knock it down. Ward, 2 of 3 from long range, had 8 points to go along with 4 assists. Dangu provided a spark off the bench, going 5 of 8 from the floor and scoring 11 points, including this 2 on the athletic lay-in. Bison up 2 late in the first half, but UC Santa Barbara would end on a 12-2 run just before halftime. Max Heidinger had the hot hand from deep, hitting 8 3-pointers on the afternoon, scoring a game-high 33. Gauchos up 9 at the break. Bison continued to battle and hang around in the second half. A.J. Jacobson hit a pair of 3-pointers, scoring 10 points and grabbing 5 rebounds. Freshman Cameron Hunter was also in double figures scoring, chipping in with 11 points, including this 4-point play. NDSU would cut the lead to 9 with 5 minutes to go, but UCSB would pull away. Jalen Canty with the bucket and the foul. He scored 13 as the Bison dropped the season opener, 85-66 the final. NDSU only turned it over 8 times, but shot just 37% in the second half, while the Gauchos hit 12 of 22 from outside the arc. The Bison back in action Monday night at 10th-ranked USC, and not intimidated. Dylan Miller, nice feed inside to Dangu, and he lays it in. NDSU off to a quick 5-0 start. Redshirt freshman Cameron Hunter came off the bench with the hot hand. The drive inside, the high-arcing floater for 2. The Bison had 37 points off the bench in the game. It was a tough shooting night for senior Paul Miller. He banked in his only 3-pointer of the game with 8 minutes left in the first half and finished with 7 points, but the Bison still up 2. Miller did dish out 3 assists as well, the feed to Spencer Eliason for the lay-in, as NDSU goes on a 12-2 run to take a 10-point lead. But the Trojans finished the half strong, the Bison turning it over 19 times, which led to 20 USC points. Jordan McLaughlin out in transition scores just before the halftime horn sounds, tied at 33 going into the locker room. Second half, Jared Samuelson launching and hitting the deep 3-pointer. The sophomore was 3 of 7 from long range as NDSU builds a 4-point lead. Hunter continued his strong game, driving inside, stepping around a defender and hitting the circus shot, plus the foul. He also hit 4 3-pointers on the evening. This triple puts the Bison on top 52-49. Hunter a team-high 24 points on 8 of 11 shooting. Gu would follow it up with back-to-back dunks, the spin on the baseline and throwing it down. NDSU building its largest lead of the second half, 56-51. But the Trojans go on an 8-0 run in the final 5 minutes. Loose ball leads to a 3-on-2 break. Benny Boatwright slamming home 2 of his game-high 28 to go along with 8 rebounds as USC hangs on 75-65, with NDSU dropping to 0-2. The Bison were outscored 42-22 in the paint, but did have 7 steals and 10 3-point field goals overall. Stay with us. Coming up next, we'll catch up with head coach Dave Richmond to get his thoughts on the opening road trip and preview NDSU's matchup with Missouri State.
The Bison Basketball Show on Midco Sports Network is presented by Nodak Insurance Company, Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, and Proceed.
Welcome back to the Bison Basketball Show, joined now by NDSU men's head basketball coach David Richmond, and a couple of road games to start off the season, Dave. I know out in California they both end up in the L column, but what did you take out of it? Because I'm sure you were anxious to see some guys get on the floor and play some extended minutes.
Yeah, there's only certain experiences that you can go through in the practice facility or in practice or in a film session. You just got to go through some things, especially with the youth that we have. Going back to the USC game Monday night, it's around the 6-minute mark and we're in a timeout, and I'm staring at 3 sophomores and 2 freshmen in there. And so encouraging to say the least, because it was a ball game. But again, we're in this to win basketball games, and right now we're 0-2, and so it's got a bad taste in our mouth, and we're looking to get that taste out of our mouth.
One thing that we talked about a little bit earlier was getting used to playing so many more bodies. You played 10 guys both nights, and everybody got double-digit minutes. What was that like to get that many contributions out of guys? 30 bench points almost both games.
Yeah, it was nice to see the bench points. It's little more work as a coach. You know, you're in there moving guys around, and I think the big word that we've talked about, Brian, you and I have talked about it, and we're talking about it a lot within our program, is perspective. And perspective is really easy to talk about. When you're actually living it, it can be difficult to swallow. And what I mean by that is you know, working A.J. Jacobson back in. You know, we're trying to keep his minutes around 20 right now. We'll see Friday if we can bump him up a little bit. But, you know, just working him back from that injury, being out for 2 months, that's a long time. We need him to be where he needs to be when we need him to be there, if that all makes sense. And but it's nice. I think we have an opportunity to get some guys in and out, keep bodies fresher, not only within games but within the season as well.
And we've seen some guys make the improvement over the summer and in the off season to where they're at. Dengu certainly stands out in terms of his confidence on the floor, looks more confident. But Cameron Hunter comes off and scores 11 points and then 24 on a huge stage against USC. What did you take out of that?
Well, very exciting to see. Cam's got a great swagger about him. It was, you know, tremendous confidence, and he's been really aggressive. It's 2 games in. You know, it's certainly exciting to see. But again, we want to see that progress continue to progress here throughout the next couple weeks and months. And you know, he scored the ball really well. Now that next step is continuing to defend and getting his other teammates involved as well.
One thing we knew out of the chute, it was going to be difficult road. On the road for 10 days, you're back, and then you're on the road right away again at Missouri State. The Bears are a very talented Missouri Valley team, picked to win the league. That should be another good road test.
Yeah, who set up the schedule? You know, but that is what it is. I mean, bring on the competition like we always say at North Dakota State. And we're going to get battle tested. And I've said this too countless times. It's not just who we're playing, it's where we're playing them and when we're playing them. Get back last night, turn around, have a quick practice today, have a quick practice tomorrow morning, then we're hitting the road again. And again, when we talk about perspective, there's just some things, some experiences, like you mentioned, that this young group has got to grow through. And as we do, I think is the confidence gains, the comfort level gains. Again, I'm not going to hide back. I like this group. I like the positioning.
I know one of those things as a coach you got to do is try to paint that picture, that end of the tunnel part of saying, hey, after this, we're home for a while. We got some big home games coming up as well. Is that something you do as a head coach to say, hey guys, if we got to get through this, we got to battle, and then hey, we're going to be home for a while?
Well, it's a couple. We've broken it down a couple ways. Just like Chris and the football program talk about, it's a one day, one game at a time mentality. The other thing that we've talked about with just the way the preseason is set up is segments, and we've set it up in these first 3 games where we're 0-2 and have one more here on Friday. And that third one, again, with another tremendous opportunity, but also a tremendous challenge. And then coming after that, we got a couple home games where, if we do need to make some adjustments, we can make some adjustments. But coming after this, what I consider a real tough stretch is these first 7 games. 5 on the road, 2 at home. After those 7 games, having a pretty good identity, pretty good idea what our identity is going to look like going forward.
All right, Dave. We'll look forward to seeing you when you do get back home next week.
Yeah, someday we'll be home.
Dave Richmond here joining us on the Bison Basketball Show. Stay with us. We will check in with the Bison women. Had a couple of home games this past weekend to start off their season. That's coming up next. Welcome back to the show. Unlike the men, the NDSU women's basketball team has the luxury of playing its first 4 games at home before hitting the road for a tournament at the end of the month. The Bison got things started last Friday night against Mayville State. It was the 25th meeting all-time in the series that dates back to 1967, and NDSU came out flying. Starting the game on a 7-0 run, Taylor Thunstead with the steal and lay-in. She had a game-high 21 points, 10 of them in the first quarter. Later in the opening quarter, Sarah Jacobson drives on the baseline, spins in the reverse lay-in. She led the Bison with 6 assists, and NDSU continues to roll. Tyra Spencer put the Herd up 16 after driving inside for another lay-in. NDSU had 46 points in the paint, and the Bison led at 51-30 at the half. NDSU would continue to roll in the third quarter. Danica Vagley came off the bench to grab a game-high 12 rebounds. 8 were offensive. Riley Nudell converting on her second opportunity. Michelle Geislerova also in double figures for NDSU. The freshman hitting 2 3-point field goals and chipping in with 13 points off the bench in her debut. The Bison also had 21 assists on 33 made field goals in the contest as well. Freshman Macy Quilvang inside to Autumn Ogden for the lay-in, and NDSU wins going away 87-43 the final. The Comets turned it over 30 times. That led to 39 NDSU points. A good start at home, especially on the defensive end.
We stick to our defensive goals. which resulted in a lot of possessions on our side, a lot of steals. We got a lot of stops in a row, so I think that was the key to the success. We just stick to the key points.
We knew that they like to shoot threes, so making sure to get in front over the screens, getting a hand up when they got the ball, and I thought we contested their shots very good tonight. I think they maybe only got 2 or 3 open shots tonight, which is very good. So if we can keep that intensity on defense up, we're gonna be just fine.
Less than 48 hours later, the Bison back home hosting the New Jersey Institute of Technology for a Sunday matinee. Again, off to a fast start. Great ball movement around the perimeter to Marina Fernandez for the corner 3. She had 6 points in 18 minutes. Later, Michelle Geislerova driving inside, hitting the tough jumper off the glass. She added 14 points off the bench on 5 of 7 shooting. NDSU continued to roll in the second quarter. Sarah Jacobson, the steal, leading to transition. One of her 10 assists to a cutting Autumn Ogden for the lay-in. Ogden a double-double. Bison up 21 at the half. Second half, more of the same. Fernandez, great feed inside to Macy Quilvang for the lay-in. Plus the foul, Quilvang added 12 points. The Bison would not let up. Danica Vagley running the floor, getting the feed for another lay-in. The Bison got 54 points off the bench in the contest. That includes 10 from Kennedy Childers as she drives inside for another lay-in. The Bison shot 58% from the floor and rolled to the 105-58 victory, improving to 2-0 on the season. 7 different players were in double figures scoring, and all 10 players that participated had at least 6 points.
It was really fun to see everyone contribute, and we did have a little foul trouble, but we came back from that and got 105 points. I mean, it was just a really fun atmosphere today.
It was a great team win. I thought offensively we really moved the ball well, passed the ball, made the unselfish pass, and everybody came out and hit, and everybody was focused. And defensively, I thought that we were all dialed in and executed the game plan.
We now welcome in Marin Walseth, the NDSU women's basketball coach, to the set to chat about the opening weekend of play. And Marin, a really good start for your squad, 2 convincing victories. What stood out to you after watching your team play 2 games finally at home this weekend?
2 things really stuck out at me: the pace of which we played and our defensive intensity. Those are things we've been talking about for a very long time, so being able to see that in consecutive games was really good for us to see.
We saw it a lot in the game against NJIT, but the amount of people you're able to play and not lose much. And if you're looking for some energy off the bench, need somebody to give you a spark, you have a lot of options this year, maybe where you haven't had that the last couple of years. Playing 10 bodies, what a luxury.
Exactly, and I think what you're talking about is depth there. So we're able to play at a high pace, and when there's fatigue and when things of that nature set in, we're able to make a substitution, but really keep our level of play and our skill set at a high level.
Taylor Thunstedt played so many minutes last year, Sarah Jacobson too. Taylor only played 3 minutes in the first half because of foul trouble. How nice is it to limit some of those kids' minutes so that when you get into February and March, they're still reasonably fresh?
I think there's a couple things that are the advantage of being able to play more balanced minutes. One being saving some legs for later or for the second game of a weekend, but also getting some of our freshmen and our young players more game experience. That helps their confidence, but it also helps their teammates' confidence when they do have to play later or if we're in foul trouble or whatnot. So it's really a nice balance all the way around.
Michelle Geislerova is one of those freshmen that really doesn't play like a freshman. And the reason being is because the international experience she had. She comes right off the bench. She is not shy. She gets out there and guns it, and she had 2 really strong games in her 2 debuts.
Exactly. Yeah, when you think about freshmen, she's not somebody that comes to mind. Does she have some freshman transition adversity? Absolutely, but not necessarily on the court. And I think that is, as you alluded to her international experience, but also her confidence in herself and her confidence in her game. She doesn't really think twice about things. She plays hard the entire time. She's not afraid to make a mistake. I really like that about her.
On the injury front, playing 10 bodies, but you had a couple of people that were still out. Emily Dietz still nursing a foot, Riley Jacobson an illness. Talk about their progress and maybe when they would return and what the timetable is.
Absolutely. It's unfortunate that people get sick and that there are injuries, but both have a very positive attitude about it. RJ is working her way back in, and we expect to see her some this weekend. And Emily Dietz is doing what she can do with a doctor's appointment, able to progress a little bit more. So sooner, hopefully, rather than later, but we're not exactly sure yet.
And that might give you the luxury once they are back to actually play two of those bigs on the floor at the same time, whether it be Macy and RJ, or whether that be Danica. I mean, whoever you can put out there, you got some options.
Well, I think that was the plan going into the season. The plan was not necessarily to play Autumn Ogden and Riley Newdell at the 4 as much as we have this year. So it will be nice when we have two bodies, so we can maybe play the high-low game a little bit more.
Anna Good Hope is redshirting this year, deciding to develop her game a little bit more, try to get more comfortable on the floor. She would have been the 13th body. How does that change things for you from a rotation standpoint?
Gosh, first of all, Anna comes in and expresses this desire, and certainly as a coaching staff, we can support her desire to become a better player. And it then takes us a conversation in the locker room. How do we change our rotation? What does it look like? And I think in a way that's still a work in progress, but certainly something that we can adapt to.
2 more games coming this weekend at home. That's been the nice part about being at home for your first 4 games. UMass coming in, you saw them last year, and then Valley City State. How do you keep this momentum rolling before going on the road?
Yesterday we had a great individual workout day. Take a day off and keep progressing and with the scout for the upcoming weekend. But it's really about our standards and what we're capable of doing, not as much about our opponent.
All right, Maren, thank you as always for the time, and good luck this weekend, and we'll see you this weekend.
Thank you much.
All right, Maren Walseth, you're joining us on the Bison Basketball Show. Stay with us. We will check in with a new assistant on the women's staff. That's Nate Oakland, and have his story on his route to Fargo. That's coming up next. Welcome back. Becoming a college basketball coach can often mean moving multiple times throughout a career, never quite sure when or where the next opportunity might come. Nate Oakland is new to the women's staff at NDSU after spending the last couple of years as the head coach at Coe College in Iowa. We go one-on-one with the first-year Bison assistant. All right, back for another edition of One-on-One. We are joined by Nate Oakland, who is a new assistant here on the NDSU women's basketball staff. Spent the last couple of years at Coe College, a D3 school out in Iowa. You've cut your teeth at other places. Talk about your experience at Coe and what you learned there and what made that an attractive opportunity for you.
Yeah, being a college head coach was always a goal of mine. So I was very fortunate to be at a good school in a good place where I had some good recruiting ties, but also had familiarity with the area from a school and educational standpoint. Yeah, we had a good crew. It was hard to leave, but I think the future's bright for them, and to be able to kind of mold their now head coach, who was maybe one of the best players in that school's history, was an honor for me and exciting for me. So I'm going to be following closely the next few years, that's for sure.
You are coaching post players here. Now, I know you're not the tallest guy in the world, Nate, but that doesn't mean you can't coach post players. Tell me about your philosophy, I guess, and if I'm a post player and you're trying to mold me and shape me, what are some things you're trying to do?
Well, we need to get you in shape first.
That's a long process.
No, the biggest thing is you're closer to the basket, so it's more physical. And so you got to make sure that you're taking care of your body. And then being able to take a hit, maybe give out a few hits, and then just being able to put the ball in the hoop. That's any way, shape, or form, that's the goal. So we spend a lot of time on finishing different ways, on getting hit from different people, taking a couple hits, and then just being able to be tough physically and mentally down here, where you're taking the brunt of the physicality.
And when you're on the block here, the key is just, first of all, just getting to the block. You got to be physical enough to get your position. So if I'm here, I'm just battling with you. And the most important thing is just trying to hold my position right here.
Yeah, and we have a saying, low man wins. And so I got to be able to make sure that I'm getting lower, which will load up my bigger, stronger muscles so that I can push you where I want you to go. And then using angles, using angles of how I can use maybe some footwork or coming from a different spot, so that we're not just wrestling down here. We spend some time, even with some of our young players, about utilizing the short corner or going underneath the basket or maybe flashing the high post, so that now you've got to be more aware about where I'm at and with setting you up so that I can put you in a position to make an easier basket.
One thing that Maren Walseth had mentioned to me is you have some ties and some friends in the NBA.
Yeah.
Who are those friends, and how do you know those guys, and how does their knowledge equate to the women's game here in college?
That's great. Great question. One of my best friends growing up, his name's Nate Lenzer. He's an assistant with the Bulls. Been with Fred Hoiberg for a few years. So we talk a lot. We talk multiple times a week. So I grew up playing against him in a lot of sports. Ended up coaching some high school boys with him, where we really forged our coaching relationship when we were in college. So we talk, like I said, we talk a lot. Another friend of ours works for the Bulls, Brian Hagan, is an assistant GM. So they're two guys I lean a lot on, both personally and professionally.
Let's talk about your time away from basketball. You have 5 kids. You are a busy guy, not to mention that. What other things do you do to keep yourself busy? What are some of your other passions away from you?
Well, with 5 kids, you don't have a whole lot of other free time. Golf has always been a hobby of mine. You mentioned, I coached college golf as a head coach for 3 years at a small college as well. So as a family, that's something that we like to do. Other than that, we go to parks. We try to do anything outside that we can, weather permitting.
Well, we appreciate the time, Nate, and welcome to Fargo, and good luck this season.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, that's Nate Oakland one-on-one. Oakland is married to the former Alex Cook, a 3-time All-Missouri Valley first-team selection at Northern Iowa. Stay with us here on the Bison Basketball Show as we take a look ahead at the upcoming schedule. That's coming up next.
The Bison Basketball Show on Midco Sports Network is presented by NODAC Insurance Company, Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, and Proceed.
Back to wrap up this episode of the Bison Basketball Show, and we got a pair of women's games this weekend back at the Sanford Health Athletic Complex on Midco Sports Network. It all starts 7 p.m. Friday night as UMass comes to Fargo before NDSU hosts Valley City State on Sunday afternoon. The Bison men also in action Friday at Missouri State. The Bears will make a return trip to Fargo in early December. That one tips off at 7 p.m. Friday as well. We'll recap it all next week on the Bison Basketball Show. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.